One more before we take a very quick break. Enhancing cross-border mobility data sharing with mobilityDCAT-AP. And with us are Mario Scrocca, knowledge engineer, Sefriel Italia, and Peter Lubrich, research associate, Federal Highway and Transport Research Institute in Germany. So I guess we start with Peter, right?
All right,
okay.
I'm Peter, and thanks for your attention in this presentation. So I am originally a traffic engineer, so I do traffic signals and roads, and I'm asking myself, so why am I here? So well, semantic and open data communities, there are good reasons for that, and I'm trying to explain why. So when you on the way, when you're traveling by car, by bike, whatever, usually you use your cell phone, you use your navigation apps. And many of those services are based on public sector data. So we talk in our community about ITS, about MaaS, and all those services and systems rely on data, and that data must be found via metadata. So these are key elements. Coming from a transport business, I can tell you that there's a huge ecosystem of data platforms right now, triggered by certain EU regulations that are listed here. And we call them NAPs, National Access Points, and they are all active here all over Europe. So you will see all those logos. So when you're looking for mobility data, have a look. There's a lot of going on in our community. So when you look up those platforms, you will find metadata that you probably know from other domains, something like the data supplier or the license, and so on. However, there are also some very mobility-specific assets, something like a data category that is very, very into like what kind of traffic infrastructure you're looking at, for example, parking, rest areas. So you might imagine when every EU country is doing something like that, very often it's heterogeneous and not really consistent. Many silos have been developed. And even worse, very few semantic approaches or machine readability. Because the traffic people are very old school, so they do like something close and simple and don't really look left and right. And embracing the semantic community was one of our approaches. So we tried to define metadata for the transportation mobility people, doing something on paper, something very low-tech, non-interoperable. There was nothing with RTF and so on. So yeah, we advanced and we embraced DCAT-AP, which has been explained to you here many times, and as you might know, there are many extensions being built for specific domains, because we were told we have to go into semantics, into semantic technologies, into interoperability with open data. So we did look at how DCAT-AP works, and we were really impressed, and we were very keen to build an own extension. We found out there was nothing really useful for the mobility people, so we had to start from scratch. Then, there was another acronym before, but now we went to mobilityDCAT-AP just to enter the family of GeoDCAT-AP, Health DCAT-AP, and all the others that you might know. So mobilityDCAT-AP is the new acronym and the new logo that we are using, and it's meant to address the mobility data scene. Because we started from scratch, we had to kind of find a timeline and roadmap. So it has been done under the NAPCORE project. It's an EU-funded project that coordinates the NAPs, the National Access Points, as I told you. And we are now in the release. Yeah, the public release is version 1.10, but we are reaching out for the next one, which Mario will explain to you in the next part of my presentation. All right, so following this process, as I told you, as in any data model, you start with requirement analysis, you do a conceptual model, which is technology agnostic, and then you go for RDF and you try to do some RDF mapping. So we try to reuse as much as possible from existing RDF vocabularies, namely DCAT-AP, DCAT-AP, and others. And the documentation and the hosting will be explained to you by Mario. So what is so special about mobility data? I just highlighting some of the specifics that we are looking at. The data format in mobility, we have very, very sophisticated data standards coming from the ITS domain. So we have to be able to describe those data formats and standards. So this is some addition that we are proposing. The same goes for the content info. We have to make sure that parking data, charging stations, and roadworks are described via RDF elements. So this is what we have added here. And this is based on a conceptual model, which is like the pre-model to the RDF model that had been developed afterwards, with many additions, many alignments. So I'm not going into details right now, looking at the time. So this is like the storyline in terms of why we are doing that and how this has been developed. But the most interesting parts will now be taken over by my colleague Mario also from the NAPCORE team, because he will tell you how this works technically and how you can reuse it as a deployer. So Mario.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. So let's resume from here. So as Peter was saying, we follow a roadmap. So before starting, we look into all the best practices that are associated with DCAT-AP, and we also got in contact with the publication office, CEMIC group. And so we went on with the implementation, and I will be quick here. So as you know, there is a concept of content negotiation. So mobilityDCAT-AP is available as HTML for humans, but also as machine-readable serialization. And we are also offering SHACL shapes for validation. And another thing that is also important, that is a big part of our specification, are controlled vocabularies. And this defines the recommended values for certain properties defined by mobilityDCAT-AP. We had to define quite a big number of vocabularies related to the mobility domain, but we tried as much as possible to reuse the one from the publication office. And as mentioned this morning, we also managed to improve, let's say, propose new values for one of these, that is the frequency table, and we collaborated with the publication office to release a new version of this vocabulary. And an interesting thing here, from more technical side, is that we leverage Excel files to get the help of domain experts. And in our controlled vocabulary folder on GitHub, you can find a workflow that we use to generate automatically RDF and then HTML documentation from these Excel files. Then we have all the part related to hosting and publication that use persistent identifiers, and you find all the information on our GitHub organization. There are also many support resources because, as Peter was explaining, of course, in the mobility domain, not everyone is expert about these technologies. So we did quite a big effort in producing documentation. There is a wiki with content that is more like introductory with respect to the specification itself. We also have a generator tool that is an interface with a simple web form where you can put some information and see how this is mapped to mobilityDCAT-AP. And there are also a couple of webinars that we made that are available online if you're interested in discovering more about that. There is, of course, space for everyone. In mobilityDCAT-AP, we are really open to get feedback because, of course, the mobility domain is really is a very big community, and we are really happy that now the number of issues on GitHub are really popping up. Of course, it's more, let's say, it's difficult to stay at the pace with all the issues, but we're very happy about it, and we are doing our best to continue and let's say, reply to this feedback and incorporate in the specification. And here we have another repository that documents the current adoption of mobilityDCAT-AP. Also on this aspect, we are very happy because the regulation helps us in guaranteeing that this specification is really adopted, and we already have 6 national access points that implemented it, and you can find the list on this page. Now I would like to conclude this presentation talking a little bit on how mobilityDCAT-AP could support the European mobility data space. So in the European mobility data space, there is this concept of interlinking layer that helps in the discovery of data offerings to improve data sharing within the data space. And mobilityDCAT-AP is part of the European recommendation. And there is also already a report that performs an analysis on how mobilityDCAT-AP could support the European mobility data space. And the point here that I would like to highlight is that in the Deploy EMDS project, that is another project specifically working on the implementation European mobility data space by performing 9 European, let's say, pilots in different cities and regions. We are investigating exactly that. And the point is that there are specific requirements for data spaces that are not fully covered by mobilityDCAT-AP. And while some of these requirements can be used to improve potentially mobilityDCAT-AP, we believe that there are some aspects related to the description of offerings that are required for data spaces that potentially should not be part of mobilityDCAT-AP, but should be in another specification. And let me explain a little bit this concept. So DCAT and also all the application profiles support the description of resources, not the full description of the offerings. And mobilityDCAT-AP and other domain extensions like health-DCAT-AP are of course needed because there are specific domain requirements that should be covered to cover these domains. But what we believe, what we are experimenting, let's say, in this project, is that there are also some metadata that are somehow domain agnostic, but that are needed to cover data space offerings. And in the state of the art, let's say, there are other specifications that are not RDF, but that are well established, like the Open Data Product specification, that tries to collect these metadata that are required to describe a data offering. And so what we did, what we are experimenting with is really like a LLM-driven experimental of translating the specification to RDF following existing standard, is to have a sort of DSPA, as we call it, that is a sort of DCAT-AP for data spaces. So a sort of domain-agnostic specification that could cover these aspects. And to finish, the next step for mobilityDCAT-AP are, of course, to align with the other specification that we rely on, so specifically DCAT-AP and GeoDCAT-AP 3.0. We did a workshop in April. We collected a huge list of proposed modifications that we are trying to accommodate. And now we started with the next funding phase of NAPCORE in September. And so we are working on all of these. And we plan to have, let's say, a new version of the release soon already. And thank you all for your attention.
So, Mario, Peter, thank you very much. Let's go quickly to Slido questions that have multiplied here. Why all these DCAT siblings and not just a DCAT-AP mobility to increase interoperability across the domain silos?
Why they are siblings?
Yeah, that's what it says, yeah. Just a DCAT-AP
Well, why
mobility.
they're siblings? Well, I learned that DCAT-AP is like a modular, or the DCAT as such is built from a rough to a more detailed hierarchy. So when you are in a community, you want to have some detailed artifacts describing your individual assets. So DCAT is not able to do so because it's very generic, and DCAT-AP has a very specific open data community. But we are transport people, and we have our own wishes and conditions. So we had to make this because we needed to describe something like bikeways and motorcycles. So we have an own language which was not represented in RDF vocabularies sufficiently. So that's why we are here.
Adaptation. What are the activities already implemented or planned to monitor the quality of the data?
That's yours.
Yes, quality was a topic today in several sessions. So what we of course see is metadata is cool and metadata is nice when you have RDF and DCAT-AP, but the quality is not taken for granted. So what we are doing very, very strictly, we have to teach and consult our data providers or metadata providers to do it right. So the SHACLs and the IT tools can help to secure metadata at a certain level, but we still see the people behind the computers entering the metadata. So we have so far the human side, but we're also going to look into AI-assisted methods to improve quality of metadata, and this will be done in the next years in NAPCORE.
Okay, question out here, Mark, right? Yeah. It's not red yet. I think you got to hit it again or something. No. Can we give him some mic here? It's not working.
It's Mark.
Oh,
There we go.
Yes.
Oh, now it's
That's
working.
what it took.
From the Green Deal data space, very quickly. This is not a question, it's an offer. We have the same challenges as you do in terms of offerings. I don't feel ODPS is the right direction to go, and we do need something better. And ideally, we have a multi-domain, sector-agnostic offering capability that allows for interoperability across data spaces. So let's talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, did you
No, I
wanna-
just wanted to say that was also the idea of this slide, so to find other people that had potentially the same problem, so I'm very happy to discuss this further with you.
Bravo, perfect. We've connected you. Yes. Question over here, please.
So I've understood that you had to create new model.
Can you identify yourself?
It's Claudio Baldassare on behalf of DCAT-AP.
Okay.
I understood you created new models in RDF, and it was new experience for you. And how many of those models have become somehow institutional in your domain? Was any have been promoted?
Yeah, so this specification, so there are certain classes and properties that are part of the specification that we created, and then there are a set of controlled vocabularies, so SCOS taxonomies, basically, that are used for the values. All of that are like part of the regulation and of the recommendation of the European Union, and are used by national access point. You see, I show the list of the one that already implemented it.
Okay, I have like several questions left, but I have 1 minute left, so here's one. What is the practical implication of this to, for instance, European railway travel or public transport apps for cities?
Okay, so imagine you are working for Google Maps. They are looking for open data with public transport, and so far they do it by hand or by reaching out to public transport agencies. And the new way to do so is to look up data at NAPs, National Access Points. So it's the easiest way for app developers or navigation services to find the right data for their services. And this is what we all need, because every of you is using Google and Apple Maps, and those services, as I said before, are based on public sector data, and these are found on NAPs via mobilityDCAT-AP.
Okay, I mean, well, I have a question myself. You started this project in 2021, right? That was like right as COVID was. We're getting out of COVID at that point, so there was a reason to go digital here. But you still have less than half the countries of the European Union that are participating. What's your selling point? How do you try to get the others to join in?
Well, the critical mass is reached, so if one half is there, so the other half will follow, and they have to do it because they are building the systems, and they have to build an information model anyway, and they have to do metadata anyway. So why should they do something from scratch? It's for free. They can reuse it to save time and money, just adapting our specification.
Sounds like a no-brainer. Thanks, guys.
Thanks
Thank you
a lot.
very much. Thank you. All right, let's take a break. We come back at 17:30 for a final panel discussion on open statistical data in the European statistical system.